Hello, future designers and developers. We are going to be making a navigation using flexbox. So we haven't used flexbox yet before, but it's a display option that allows us to really change the shape of our page very quickly, much like CSS Grid or even someone using those float properties. It allows us to arrange items very, very quickly. So we're going to do a little introduction into it, and we're going to see the benefits of it in this tutorial. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take a page that I have already made part of it, so you should have access to this on our canvas page, and we're going to take what looks like this right now and we're going to transform it into something like this. Pretty simple, but you know, it'll work, it'll look nice. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we are actually going to get rid of all the margin and padding on this page. I don't want any margin, I don't want any padding on this. So what I'm going to do is, before we even start, I'm going to use this asterisk. It's going to select everything. That's what the asterisk means. And I am going to set our padding to 0 and our margin to 0. This is going to put the padding and margin down to 0 for everything. There is a little space right here, but that's our grid gap. So, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. That's for a later video. But yeah, so this will allow us a little bit of space as well as a little bit more control over where everything is positioned right away. So let's get the background of this. And what we're actually going to do inside of this is we are going to add a text wrapper, and let me show you why I want to do that. So if we go to our index over here, we have our navigation. Inside of our navigation, it just holds our H1, which is our logo, and then it holds a unordered list, which is our navigation, our actual links. So if I go through here and I go into my CSS and I then call out my navigation. So I call out my nav, and inside of my nav, I want to set our display property to be flex. When I set it to flex, it's going to put these things on the same row. They are now squished together like a sandwich, but we want to spread them out pretty much to the very ends. So what I am actually going to do, instead of having them right next to each other, I want to put as much space in between them as possible, which is super, super nice. There's a lot of different ways that we can do this. That is justifying our content. Justification is how far it takes up on a line. So I'm going to say justify content. And what we want to do is say space between, where it's going to put the most amount of space between them as possible. So now you're going to be able to see that one's on one end and then one's on the other end. So we've got our logo over here and we've got our content over here. So that's really, really cool. But we also have other properties that we can do, like we can do, instead of space between, we can do space around, which puts, say it's 30 padding over here, it's 30 padding over here, and then 30 padding over here, and 30 padding over here. So it puts an equal amount of space on each side of this. There's a couple other properties, but we're gonna see those later. So the one that we wanna do is space between. Cool. So now once I have this, I am going to set my nav background. So I can say that the background color, we can set that to black. Cool. Everything becomes black. Real quick, I'm gonna throw in the color over here. So we're gonna make that, we're not gonna put it as pure white. We're gonna do fa, 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 which is just off of pure white so that we can actually see our logo. Cool. So now we have this full black background and it spaces all the way across 80%. But let's say that I don't want this to actually, did I say 80%? Yeah, I don't want this to actually space all the way side to side. I want them to be a little bit of space on each side. Yes, I can put padding, but the better way to do this is inside of here doing, not inside of our H1, inside of our navigation, we're gonna say that we want our width of this to be 80%. And now the black background only goes up to here. It stops, and that's not ideal for what we want to do. So what we are going to do is we are going to put all this inside of what's known as a wrapper. So underneath our body, and before we start the nav, we are going to throw in a div with a class equal to, we're going to say nav wrapper. We'll close that up. I'm going to take my closing tag, I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to throw it inside of, or after our nav. Format this file. So now I've got this nav wrapper that wraps around our nav. That's why we call it a wrapper. So once I go back into the CSS, I can call out that nav wrapper. Remember, it's a div, so dot nav wrapper. Open this up. And now I can set this one, background color. We're going to set that to black. And then we're going to set our margin to auto, which is going to evenly space out on both sides, which is really nice because we will then have a responsive website if it actually did it. Oh, margin auto, that should be inside of our nav because it's inside of our nav wrapper. That's what I meant to do. Cool. So now we have our equal spacing on each side. It's 80%, and we have auto margins on the side, which just makes it really nice and responsive. We get a little bit of lag over here as it shifts the size, but that works. That works. Cool. All right, so let's see what we want to do next. Let's do this logo. We'll work left and then go over to right. Cool. So you can see I use this super cool font. The font is called Yesteryear. Got that off of Google Fonts. So we're going to keep it as this purple color. Well, let's go into this H1. And what we're going to do, we're going to do this in a really slick way. We'll say slick. We are first going to give the actual, my apologies. What am I thinking? Oh, we're going to give it a background color. We're going to give the font specifically a background color. So I'm going to say background color. We're kind of doing this in a cheeky way. We're going to say purple. And you can see it totally takes up the whole thing right there. That's fine right now. And then we are going to round it out. We're going to give it a border radius, and then we're going to set that to be 50%. Now, the reason that we're doing that is it is going to totally round the edges. If you put it at 50%, it's rounding half the distance from here to here, so it makes a perfect oval or circle. You can still see that we have a little bit of padding issues, and this is not totally centered up, but that's okay. What we're going to do next is we are actually going to align our content all the way across here, so it's aligned, center aligned, like our equator. So inside of my nav, I am going to say align content. Center. Now, the only reason that we can actually use this align content center, it's not align content, it's align items. I always get confused on that because it's justify content, align content. So there you go. It's getting a little bit closer right now. What we want to do, though, in order to make sure that this maintains its round shape, we're going to add a symmetrical padding around it. So we're actually going to have a little bit more room in there. So underneath my H1, I'm going to give it padding of 0.3 rem. That's a responsive unit, and bada bing, bada boom, we have this really nice logo. It was super easy to make. It was super easy to make. All we did was add a background and round out the edges to it. So that's great. I mean, you can change the logo to whatever you wanted to make it. But that's a nice trick to making a simple logo. Cool. Now I should say, the only reason that we are able to use our justify content and our align items is because we are using our flexbox. Those properties right there are properties that are specific to this display element. In our basic block display, we don't actually have the ability to do that. Everything either floats left or right, and we don't get to center it super nicely. So this flexbox just makes it so much easier to format and center everything. So that's why we're using flexbox. It allowed us to align our content all the way across over here, and as well as justify it left and right, and align our content center horizontally. Cool. All right, let's deal with this over here. So we are going to call out our list items. So underneath A, I'm going to call out my list items, and I am also going to need to call out, oh no, I think I can do it inside of here. I am going to, that's also, the bullet points are black, so it doesn't even matter, but we're going to get rid of them anyways. So list style, we're going to say none. Nothing's going to change because we just got rid of the black dots that are on the black background. Doesn't change anything. Cool. Then we are going to change our display for this one to inline. Cool. And then we're going to add a padding left. We're just adding the padding to the left, so it's going to add a little space from here into contact, and then from contact to the about me, and then there is going to be some invisible padding from the about me to the logo. And the reason why we are doing this is because we don't want to add any padding to the right, so we keep that nice 10% here, 10% here, without messing up our lines. So we're going to add this padding left. Let's do 20 pixels to start. Good. I think we can do better than that. We'll do 30. Actually, let's stay with rems. So let's do 2 rem. Yeah, 2 rems about 32 pixels, so it wasn't going to change anything too much anyways. Cool. All right, we want this text to be that off-white color. So we're going to say color is hashtag FAFA. So that will, I think I need to put that in the A. Yeah. We're going to throw that underneath the A attribute because that is what is changing them. Speaking of that A attribute, we also don't like the lines underneath it. So we're going to go over here and change our text decoration. We're going to make that none. And then we also want these to be uppercase, and we're going to do a text transform. And we can change that to uppercase. That easily formats all of our text. And I thought I really did like this font until I saw it in uppercase, and the S is taller than the T. Just slightly, but I don't like it. But it's fine, it's fine. All right, so the navigation is a little squish right here, so we're gonna add a little bit more height to it. So we're gonna give a height, we'll make that like 10% per page. I think that might be too much, but we'll see. Oh, I think it's because it is grabbing it from the wrapper, because the wrapper is now the parent element. So we'll throw that into the nav wrapper. Unless that is exactly 10%. That didn't change anything. We just want to make that a little larger. Let's do 3 rem. Oh, there we go. We got a little bit of movement there. Oh, not 45. 5 rem. Cool. Oh, but that doesn't have our stuff aligned here. So we can now do our display flex, because otherwise it will not work. Cool. And then we can align items, center. There we go. We've got a responsive navigation bar. The logo text is a little bit smaller, so we're gonna take this and we can say our font size, bump that up to 30 point. Oh, not the A. Throw that into, where's our H1? There we go. Cool. That's a little too big, but you get the point. That was a little quick tutorial. It's actually too long now, so you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.